Joker 2 Folie Deux is the most controversial movie of the year, and not without reason. I went into this movie with low expectations, and while I enjoyed many aspects of it, there's still so much about this movie that baffled me. In my last video, I discussed one particular scene in the third act that I hated. Now let's get into the rest of the issues I had with the film. What went wrong with this movie? Why is it so hated? Real quick though, before we get into the video, only about 1% of my viewership are actually subscribed to my channel. If you love discussion about movies and TV shows ranging from superheroes to horror to animation, then please feel free to subscribe and help a small creator out. It won't kill you. And if you enjoy this video, please consider brutalizing that like button like those guards did to Arthur. Oh god, I'm sorry. Let's get into it. So who remembers when it was first announced that Lady Gaga of all people signed on for Joker 2 and that it would be a musical? The reactions were mixed, but my interest in this movie was piqued. Why is this movie going to be a musical? I never took Arthur in the last movie as a singer. Bro could barely make it through a sentence without laughing uncontrollably. And now that the movie has released, I think we all have our answer. It seems to me that Todd Phillips was asked to do a sequel and he was just lost on where to go with the story. He probably thought, come on dude, like realistically, this dude is locked up in Arkham now waiting for trial. The hell are we supposed to do with this story? But then he thought, oh wait, I got it. Harley Quinn, yes. Let's hire Lady Gaga and make it a musical. That way we can fill up the gaps in the story. Look, I don't hate musicals. The South Park movie is a banger and I will hear no other opinions out. But think about any musical and take the music out. The story is usually pretty thin without it, right? So that's what the musical aspect of Joker 2 feels like to me. The majority of this movie takes place in Arkham Asylum and the courthouse, with Arthur Fleck just kind of chilling in his own head and hanging out with Harley Quinn. Not a lot actually happens. So they threw in musical numbers to make the story feel grander. The music itself is okay too, but mostly forgettable. It's been almost a week now since this movie came out, and when I think of the most memorable moments from this movie, I am not thinking of any musical number. Okay, let's get into Harley Quinn herself, played by Lady Gaga, of course. The typical Harley Quinn and Joker story is iconic. Usually, Harley is a psychiatrist at Arkham and treats Joker, and then becomes manipulated and infatuated with him, turning crazy herself. And with the title of this movie being Folie Deux, which is French for madness for two, I definitely thought that would be the approach this movie was going for. But not really. She is already infatuated with Joker when the movie starts and is an inmate at Arkham. They try to throw in a twist that she was a psychology student before she discovered Joker and she got herself committed to Arkham, but it isn't nearly as effective. The turn of Harley Quinn from normal to crazy is still here, but it happens off screen before the movie starts. This just leads to a much less interesting narrative. Honestly, the Joker-Harley Quinn relationship in this movie felt like the B story, not the A story, especially in the third act. I mean, as far as movie romances go, it's just okay at best. It just mostly felt rushed, and it was obvious from the start really that Harley was only interested in the Joker persona, not Arthur himself. I mean, she made bro put on the Joker makeup so they could have sex in the jail cell. I mean, come on Arthur, that's almost as bad as having to wear a paper bag on your head. Anyway, the meat and bones of this whole movie is actually the courtroom stuff and Arthur struggling with his identity and his newfound fame. I like the story of Arthur struggling with his fame and the Joker identity, but the courtroom stuff is mostly a slog. Why is that? Because its entire purpose mostly is just to analyze the last movie. Everything is just focused on why Arthur did what he did. Did he have a split personality, or was it just his own actions? This shouldn't be the job of a judge or a jury in the sequel to figure out. This should be the job of the actual viewer of the first movie. Imagine if Batman was arrested at the end of Batman Begins and the Dark Knight was spent with Bruce Wayne in court as everyone tried to figure out why Bruce Wayne decided to wear a bat costume and punch criminals. This would confuse audiences because we already spent the entire last movie studying that. Having films try to give you the answers to their own questions just takes away from the experience. As Stanley Kubrick, world-renowned director of 2001: A Space Odyssey, once said about that film's sequel, 2010, that he had nothing to do with, "I've never really been able to figure out what 2010 was about. It gives you all the answers to 2001, which makes it a total disaster." You're right on the money, Stanley. But I've spent enough time complaining in this video. Let's talk about what I liked about this movie. As I've said before, I really respect Todd Phillips for making the movie he wanted to make, and Warner Bros. For letting him see that vision come to life. My favorite part of this movie is Arthur struggling with his identity and fame. They could have easily just phoned this movie in and made Arthur this criminal mastermind that he never truly was in the last movie. I think they did a good job overall staying true to his character. Just look at the scene where Gary Puddles testifies against Arthur in court. Gary really gets under Arthur's skin when he tells Arthur he's traumatized from what happened. Any regular Joker would not care whatsoever about this revelation, but it really stings at Arthur, and he already starts to have second thoughts about the performance he was putting on. I found all this really interesting. Of course, it's not how I would want a typical Joker to be characterized, but this is an Elseworld self-contained story where I'm fine with liberties being taken for these characters. let's talk about the ending. So after we go through this whole movie, Arthur basically ends the movie where he started, alone in Arkham Asylum, except now he's gone through a journey of self-discovery that he's not the Joker, he's not a mastermind of chaos and anarchy. And right as Arthur gets a visitor, a fellow inmate stabs Arthur to death as we see the inmate carving a smile into his face behind him. A lot of people think this is supposed to be a setup for Heath Ledger's Joker, a backstory for him if you will, and can we please stop with that, everyone? First of all, this movie and The Dark Knight take place in completely different universes. This is not supposed to be Heath Ledger's Joker. If it was, he'd be like 30 to 40 years older than Christian Bale's Batman. I didn't interpret it as this inmate becoming the next Joker either. He's just another poor soul stuck in a never-ending movement of violence and chaos where nobody will win in the end. The point of the ending was that the movement that Arthur accidentally started had surpassed him. He couldn't live up to the ideals and philosophies that surrounded him, and how could he? Arthur was never a mastermind of crime and anarchy. He was a lonely, mentally ill man who simply defended himself on a subway as he was on his last breath of sanity. And now we see, since Arthur couldn't cut it as the leader of this Joker movement, the mob can easily move on without him. As they say, you can kill the man, but not the idea. The original Joker was never meant to have a sequel, and that was obvious through this film. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker was never going to have a series of films where he took over Gotham and fought Batman. That's not what this character was all about. And that is exemplified with this ending, which officially chooses to close the book on any future installments in this Elseworld spin-off canon. And whether you liked this movie or hated it, I think we can all agree that's for the best. So what did you guys think of Joker 2? And for those of you who really hated it, what did you expect out of a Joker sequel, and what would you have changed about the final film that we got? Let me know in the comments. That is all for today. I hope all of you have a great day.